So Brett, I heard your story today. That was absolutely heartbreaking. Now, is this your son right here?
Yeah, this is Colton.
Why don't you lift him up?
This is the youngest one.
Hey, what's your name?
You say hi. Say hi to the camera.
Colton.
Yeah, this is Jeff. You
That's
say hi.
a wonderful name.
You say hi.
It is so good to meet you. So how old are you?
Tell me how old you are.
4?
You're 3. You're almost 4.
Almost 4. I would have thought that you were 5.
Yeah.
You're so big. That's wonderful. It's so good to see you. It's so good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I'll tell you what. If you want to stay in your daddy's arms, that's okay. I'm going to talk with your dad a little bit.
Okay. You want to go play?
Okay.
Go chase Bubba? Let me talk to Jeff for a minute. You go chase Bubba, okay? Go find him and take him.
So, wow. That was the most emotional moment when he came up front. I was in the back crying myself. But so anyway, go ahead. Tell us a little bit more of your story. I mean, I could not believe the stuff that you go through, and I have a friend who's gone through the parental abduction, more than one, who's gone through the parental abduction, and then I talked to Steve afterwards as well. People don't think that this is a big issue. It never happens, right? This is America. But go ahead.
Well, that's the common misconception, and along with society as well as law enforcement, and many times law enforcement, they view these as civil matters, and in all reality, it is a crime in all 50 states.
Right.
For you to abduct your child. One of the biggest misconceptions, as you said, is that this doesn't happen. And in reality, there's very little statistics on this because so many of these cases go undocumented and unreported due to the lack of law enforcement's willingness. They say the FBI is quoted that typically 2,500 of these cases go internationally each year. Tens of thousands go interstate, and multi-millions remain in-state. Okay, well, go get him and tickle him. Go tickle him. And it's heartbreaking, Jeff. Even experiencing it myself. When I hear from other fathers and mothers that are going through a similar situation, it breaks my heart to hear that they're struggling and facing many of the same things that I have. And that's why I choose to stand up and speak out about this, is because it's wrong. And I don't want my children to ever have to face the same things that I had to face to be a dad.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, we may not see things change immediately, but we're doing it for the future because we don't want to see it happen to our kids.
That's exactly right, Jeff.
I'm sorry,
No, I understand. It's gut-wrenching and heartbreaking to anyone that knows what that feeling is like.
Right.
He pinched me.
Go pinch him back.
And you said that you're speaking out. But I've got to imagine that going through this, people are probably looking at you like you deserved it.
Yeah.
There must be something bad about you.
Yeah.
And people probably murmuring behind your back, maybe to your face.
That was a lot of the feelings in the beginning, It was almost as if they were just delaying it and waiting for me to do something that would justify her taking the kids. That was almost what it felt like, and it was like they were antagonizing me in every way possible by not allowing me to exercise my rights to be able to see my kids, to get a missing persons report, or even file a police report. And it was almost like I said, they were antagonizing me because they wanted to see what I would do. And fortunately, God gave me the power to keep fighting and to do the right thing. And, I'm blessed beyond belief. Majority of people that go through what my children and I have, they never have the reconnection experience.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's years later. And by that point, the damage is so severe to the parent and to the child. Their lives are never the same. And, this is it's caused me a lot of emotional and I guess psychological questions. As far as who can I trust, feelings of insecurity. As far as are my children really safe, and the very system that we believe in, is it really going to keep my children safe? And I have a bit of a personal experience with first responders. I grew up around firemen and policemen. My dad has been a fire chief since I was 5 years old. I grew up in the fire station. Many of law enforcement officers in our area are some of my dad's best friends and some of our greatest family friends. And to change my perception on law enforcement, because of this,
Yeah.
it's been devastating in a lot of aspects of my life, and it's really made me question, what is the right thing for a parent to do when they go through these types of experiences? Because if you can't get the law to help you and you can't get the courts to help you, that leads to people making rash choices and
Right.
taking things into their own hands, which that just encourages more issues
And proves
and-
how bad of a person you were.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and just proves, and it's sad that so many people have to experience this, and you're helpless. I mean, you're absolutely helpless, and you're alone when you go through this. From the moment it started, it was like time stopped for me. I was
I
no
hear you.
longer living. I was only surviving,
Yeah.
and it was just day-to-day struggle trying to find out, how can I get my kids home, and I was just looking for an answer. That's all I was looking for.
So let me ask you, you seem, from what you've said, and maybe I'm misunderstanding something here, but you seem to be a man of faith. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did the church help you, or did the church...
I've never been really a churchgoer
Okay.
myself, but really the helplessness and the level of frustration and just the sheer emotional pain,
Right.
it led me to trust in my faith, and I found a different level of understanding of my relationship with God because of this. I can literally remember praying every night in my living room, just show me a way, give me
Right.
a way, and if you give me a way, I'll make a way for somebody else.
Right.
And that's what I wanted.
Yeah. What happened in my case is different than yours. Mine involved grandchildren and other things, and I haven't seen my grandkids for 2 years right now because of a false accusation, which went to court, and it was so ridiculously false. Of course, there was really no doubt. Well, you never know, because in these courts, you never know what's going to happen. And when you talk about the issue of trust, it's not that you don't even trust anybody, but you almost trust them to do the wrong thing.
That's absolutely correct. In fact, after I recovered my children and we were reunited here in Texas, it was a few weeks later, and I'd had a protective order put on her in Arkansas.
Right.
And I filed my papers there, and then she was also under one here in Texas in Denton County. Well,
Right.
she wasn't allowed to have any contact with the children. And anyways, she called up to my local police department, the same one that had been so joyous through the entire thing, and told them that she could not get a hold of her children, and they were with their dad. Well, they proceeded to show up at my house at 5 o'clock in the morning and try to tell me that they had the magical authority to see my children and that I had to deliver and show them to them. And,
Wow.
needless to say, it didn't go so well for them.
Yeah.
I fortunately, I'm comfortable enough in my understanding of the law, and more than anything, I think this gave me the confidence to question those in authority.
Yeah.
And to question what their real motives are. And they were, again, flat out lying to me, telling me they had some magical wand and they could do what they wanted to do. And, had I just been submissive and allowed them to do it, there's no telling what could have happened.
And I think that you hit a point there, because from my experience on some of these things, it seems as if you're the person who wants to work things out, they almost use that against you, because it's like the path of least resistance. So they can threaten you because the other person's going to be belligerent or whatever, and they may not be able to do anything. I don't know. Do you have any comment about that?
I agree. I think this system is designed to feed the parent that truly is not looking out for the child's best interest. And what I mean by that is when you have a high conflict divorce, and as you stated, one parent is being belligerent and the other is trying to be cooperative, many times we've seen over and over that the system will actually enable the abusing parent or the parent that is acting belligerent, and it will take no consideration into how the parent is trying to I'm trying to think of the word compromise with the belligerent parent just so that they can resolve the issue.
Right.
And, it's almost as if the court goes until they know you have nothing left to give, whether that's financially, emotionally, physically, psychologically. And then once you get to that certain point to where you're at the end, you come to the realization that this is all that I have. This is the only option I have, is to do what this one judge tells me I can give. Standard visitation, extended standard visitation. And my own personal understanding that couldn't be less true in what the laws of America are today. It's actually, in my opinion, laughable that a judge or any court thinks that they have the right to grant you an inalienable right that was already God-given.
Right.
And we as society, we look to these judges and to these law enforcement officers for help and for guidance when we go through these scenarios. And as everyone in here talked about today, they're not providing that. They're not providing that service, that level of protection, whether your child is being kept from you for a visitation and you're denied access, or whether the other parent takes them and runs to a state or another country. It's all the same effects on a child. And, one of the saddest things that I've come to realize is, as I stated earlier, 2,500 of these cases go international every year. And what ends up happening is law enforcement does absolutely nothing, all the way up until you can prove with a preponderance of evidence that that child has actually been removed from the United States of America and taken to a foreign country. Well, at that point, what type of relief can the United States offer you in Brazil, Japan, China, Mexico? They can do very little, very little. So why is it that we're waiting until it's out of their control before they decide to finally do something, when it was fully in their control all along, and they could have done something and they chose not to?
Just before I was talking with you, here, Brett, I was talking with Steve, and he told me something that I had never heard about. He had his ex-wife kidnap his kids, take them to Mexico, and he had to file something about the Hague Convention.
And it goes to the Netherlands. When you mail it, it goes to the Netherlands.
Yeah, and because his ex-wife had taken the children, abducted them to Mexico. Both Mexico and the Netherlands are on
the blacklist.
What kind of...
When Stephen's kids were taken, I think it was 2014, there was 430 Hague Treaty applications to Mexico alone, and there was only 2 kids brought back, and that was Stephen James's boys, out of 435. There was only 2 kids that came back, and it wasn't because of the Hague Treaty Convention. Stephen and I share a very unique bond. I found Stephen's story just a few weeks after my kids were taken. He had done a newscast here in Austin on his story, and struggling to get his kids back. And in that newscast, it had a private investigator that Stephen had hired named Logan Clarke, and he's based out of Los Angeles. And I must have watched that video 1,000 times the first night. I couldn't sleep, just stayed up watching it over and over again, trying to figure out what was it that got this man's kids home. What was it that he was doing different that I wasn't doing that got his kids home? And I never reached out to him. I had that video for months, and I posted it on Facebook. I shared it on Facebook and said, this is what should happen. Look at this father's struggle. This is exactly what I'm going through. And he's reunited with his children. And I shared that on Facebook. Well, months later, Stephen's wife found that post, and she messaged me and said, "I'm glad to see that our story is helping someone." And I started asking her, what was it that got your kids home? What did you guys do? And we started talking and stuff, and they introduced me to Logan. And he is the only reason that I have my children today. I can firmly say that. There was no one else that was going to do anything to help me. I called Logan the first time I talked to him, and I'll never forget this. He told me flat out, he said, "You will see your boys again. We're going to get them home for you. You can sleep well tonight because you have the world's best team looking for them." And that was something that was just such a huge relief to me after all of the stress and turmoil and You know, you feel so alone when you're trying to take this machine on or this beast on and figure out how you can actually recover your kids. And to have someone that had experience, had been successful in recovering kids, to tell me, we're going to get your kids home, it's going to be okay. That, you know, it was a huge just relief off of me, knowing that someone was actually helping. Someone here was actually going to help me.
There was a guy that I spoke with in September of last year. We were driving from Texas to D.C. for the Restoring Freedom rally. Mm-hmm. We stopped at one place, and I can't repeat his name, but he had been in the military, and some of the stuff that he did in the military was very highly classified. But the same thing happened to him, except that
it's very prominent in military families and veterans, and that's one thing that's really untalked about. You know, we discuss it quite a bit on our pages is what's happening to the veterans in this country.
Yeah, it's
terrible. Can you imagine going overseas and fighting to defend your family and the freedoms that we all have, hoping the entire time just to get back to your family in some kind of normalcy? You get off the plane, the boat, whatever it is, you come home and you find a piece of paper on the table and nobody's there. And it says you can't see your kids, appear in this court, pay this much child support. And that's what's happening.
It is happening.
All across the country, every day, to thousands of veterans.
I'm not sure if you know about Joshua Jones out of Tennessee, but he was a case where, and he's not alone in this, but he was thrown into jail because he's 100% disabled vet.
I do remember hearing something about that.
So there were a number of people that chipped into a GoFundMe account, got him out. When he was in jail, he was being treated worse than the criminals. He had been, I think it was about a year and a half, it took him to get his medicines adjusted. They denied him his medicines in jail. And they were trying to illegally seize his disability check. And his wife is his caregiver because he's got the PTSD and everything else. And then they say, what? PTSD makes you dangerous.
Yeah.
And then the states go in there and they try to take something that is federally protected, a veteran's disability check. When you talk about the stories of veterans, this is the part that gets me, because you look at so many Americans and we love our military, and this happens all the time, that whether it's mothers or fathers that go overseas and they come back and all of a sudden they're no longer fit parents. Everything's gone. And I cannot tell you how many people I no longer expect that the stories are abnormal. When I talk with people, I expect that if I talk about something, there will be at least one or two other people that will say, we know that. I'm glad that you're speaking out, because there is a sense of shame, a sense of failure, and you're like, what makes me such a bad person?
Right.
And you're questioning everything about yourself.
Absolutely.
And you feel alone, but when you become the voice, other people say, I'm not alone.
Right.
And that's what I'm encouraged about right now with some of these bills, is that there's enough people that are finally saying, we're done.
Absolutely.
We are going to speak out.
Well, and I think Stephen shares the same motivation as I do in changing this. And,
right.
One of the things that stuck out to me in that newscast that he did that I spoke of was at the very end. He said, "Now we have to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else."
Absolutely.
And I shared that same feeling. Once I got my kids home, I went full force on how can I stop this from happening to anyone else. And now we have House Bill 3883 that's been proposed, and it would alleviate many of the troubles that we're facing.
Right.
I've spent a lot of time meeting with the Police Chiefs Association, different district attorneys around the state, trying to get an idea of why they're choosing not to enforce this. I don't know if you're aware of Mike Clifton and Michael Churi's open record studies on interference with child custody.
I have been in contact with both of them, primarily Michael Churi more so. And I'll tell you something, they're doing work that is incredible.
It is.
And it's behind the scenes.
It is. Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, those guys are incredible.
Yeah, it is. And that open record study was really a powerful thing. And they actually completed it just about the time that I got my kids home. And, I did some national media with Crime Watch Daily, Stephen and I did, after we got my kids home, to speak up and try to talk to people and explain to them that this is what's happening. And it's, as you said earlier, we all have this misconception. I mean, I had friends and family where it'd been months that I hadn't seen my kids, and they're like, well, have you been to the police station? Have you tried to make a report? Have you done this? Trust me, I've done everything I could do, and it's hard for people to grasp the idea in their mind that a child is missing and you can't find them, but no one is doing anything about it.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to understand that. It's almost as if they don't want to accept it because it doesn't fit into their puzzle of how the world really is. And that's it's very sad that so many children in Texas and around this country are being devastated by family abduction, interference of custody, parental alienation, or even high conflict divorces.
Yeah.
We're polluting the minds of our future generations by allowing this to continue.
I'll be honest with you. I got involved with this in a different way. I went through a divorce several years ago. It was a unilateral divorce against me, which is, I'm remarried. I have the most wonderful wife in the world. Absolutely. She is the love of my life. So good can come out of it. But the interesting thing was how many people wrote to me and said, you give us hope. Because so many people come out of this and they're just devastated.
Right.
And say for unilateral divorce, that's the no-fault divorce. No due process.
Right.
We have in the 5th and the 14th Amendments due process protection from both the federal government and the state government. Family courts, 100% of the defendants lose
those rights.
Yeah. So how is due process? There is no due process. And what I find even more appalling, and I'm sorry, this will come out with my background now. As far as the faith background, how many churches now accept that this is okay and refuse to do something? And when you're saying, I'm sorry, this is wrong, and you become a pain in their backside by telling them.
The Bible teaches us exactly how we should treat our families and the way we should treat other men and women.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening in today's society, And, that's why I'm honored to be here and to stand up with so many other great guys. And, we've all fought long, hard battles, and we've been devastated through it, but we all chose to use that pain for a better purpose, and that's why every one of us is here today.
There's a verse in Genesis chapter 50 when Joseph, after he had been, sold by his brother into slavery, and he was falsely accused of rape, but Joseph said this. He said, "Am I in the place of God? What you meant for evil, God meant for good." God has a greater purpose sometimes if you don't get broken,
Right.
or if you don't, because we all know people that have been broken beyond repair, committed suicide, families that are in disarray, kids that go into lives of crime that actually, or illegitimate pregnancies, or whatever you want to say, that were raised up in good families because of this whole thing. But I am so honored to meet you that you have used the pain to forge a way so that others don't have to go through this.
Yes,
And I appreciate so much. Is there anything you want to close with?
No, sir, that's it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
so
Good to
much.
meet you, too,
Good to
man.
meet you,
Good
too.
to meet you.